the antiquing stage. Now, if you listened to the last section, what we did was we took our primered piece of molding. We applied our first coat of cocoa berry stain. We wiped it off. Now, if you notice that this piece has a shine to it because we've used a high gloss lacquer sealer on this particular step. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be taking our antiquing glaze with a paintbrush, and what I'm going to be doing is applying the antiquing glaze to all the cracks and the crevices. Now, all of Pearlworks parts, one of the things that we emphasize is that I design all of my pieces to be stained. And a lot of people don't understand what that means. If you look at the detail of the Pearlworks parts, we have a lot of sharp edges and we had a lot of deep crevices. In those deep crevices, what I'm going to be doing now is applying the black antiquing glaze. Now, Sergio, go ahead and show that technique for us. Now, what we're doing here is we're highlighting the black in all of the linear lines of the molding. And what I kind of relate this to, it's almost like eyeliner that a woman will use on her eyes. And what this does, it brings contrast to your piece of finished material. Now, we're also going to take the black and we're going to put it in all the different cracks with this little tiny brush. And these are the recesses that when I carve and I make my pieces, I do this on purpose because I know in order for me to get a very realistic look of my material, I need to have a place for the glazes to go. Some of the problems that you'll have with some of my competitors' products is that they're very smooth and there's no cracks and crevices. They have very open areas and it's very difficult to finish those pieces. Now, if you notice now, you start to see the piece start to pop. It doesn't just look like a flat cocoa berry color. It has some contrast now. And if you'll notice in the shell, that yellow honey color that's coming through, what that is the primer, that pale yellow primer that we used. And you've got 3 different colors now emerging. And it's starting to give the piece a really warm and nice look. Now, this particular technique, you're going to be doing this to the entire piece of molding that you're going to be finishing. And really it goes pretty quick. And this particular step is probably one of the most important to bringing out the detail. Now, this is called antiquing. The next step that we're going to be doing is called dry brushing. And instead of going into the cracks and crevices, we're going to be going to the edges on the next technique. And we're going to be bringing out those details. Now, if there's a little bit of excess and there's a drip, you can go ahead and wipe it. And that's the reason, again, why we seal that step. For example, let's just say you didn't like this and you wanted to start over. Because you've sealed it with high gloss lacquer, you can actually take this, all the black, and strip it and wipe it out with the rag if you want to and completely start over. Now, if you want to take that off, what you need to do is you don't want to use acetone because that'll strip the lacquer off. What you want to use is the glazing compound that these stains are made from, and that is the base. This glazing compound is used as a stripper and a cleaner also because it's the base material for all of our stains and glazes, including the antiquing glazes. Now, Sergio's wiping the edges out because he's probably got a little bit of pieces here and there that went over the edges. Now, you don't have to do that. Again, this is kind of a personal taste. Now, once this step is finished and you're happy with the look, bring out the high gloss lacquer and we're going to seal this coat. Again, if we don't seal the coat and we make a mistake, we got to start over from scratch. Dry brushing. After you've done your antiquing glaze, the next step is the dry brushing. Now, again, all of these steps can be used or not be used depending on if you want to use both of them. A lot of clients will stop after this step that you see here and just apply their last finish coat, which could be a satin or a semi-gloss, and they're done. What we're trying to show you is all the different steps to create all the different looks. And of course you can either add or take away whatever you want. Now, the next step again is our dry brushing. We have a dry brushing liquid that we pre-mix for you. Now what we do is we take a little bit of it, we put it on a scrap piece of MDF or a cardboard, and then we mix it with a brand new dry brush. Sergio, why don't we go ahead and show them what we're doing with that. Now, all we're trying to do is get this very thick dry brushing glaze onto the brush. Now we don't want it drippy, we don't want it to get messy. It's just, again, it's called dry brushing because the brush is very, very dry. And we're going to take that and we're going to lightly go over the edges of the material. And that's why when you notice on Pearlworks products, there's a lot of sharp edges and a lot of deep crevices. The reason why we do that is, again, is to make sure that when you finish our product, it does it very nicely. Now, you'll notice now Sergio's taking the outer edges of the shell and just lightly brushing the black glazing, or the black dry brushing glaze over these edges. And he'll also do it to the moldings and different parts of the shell. Now, this is a very light brushing technique, not heavy, and it takes some skill to learn. The beauty of this is, because you've sealed the last step, is you can actually come back and wipe away and start over again. Sergio, why don't you show them on one of the shell edges how you can wipe it off and then start. And let's just assume you made a mistake. All you do is you take a dry rag and you wipe it off because, again, you sealed it. Now Sergio can come back and do the technique again. And let's just say it was too light or too heavy. This is one of the beauty of being able to seal each coat, and this is why we highly recommend it, especially when you do finishing for the first time and you're practicing. Now, a lot of finishers don't have to do that because they can do all the steps without making a mistake. But we still do it because there's a lot of work if you've got to start over. Now, this particular technique does the same thing as the antique glazing. What it does, it's like eyeliner for a woman on her eyes. It brings out the detail in the molding and it makes it pop. And as you can see now, it's really starting to pop compared to the beginning steps. Okay. That's the dry brushing technique, and one of the things to remember is you can go as light or as heavy as you want depending on your taste. Now, this is the very last step, applying your top coats. Once you have sealed all the steps with high gloss lacquer, you can do some build-up coats with the high gloss lacquer because a lot of finishers want to put some material on the wood. Not a problem. But if you use your build-up coats in a satin or a semi-gloss, or if you use a sanding cedar, remember, all of those finishes that have a satin or a knockdown type look, they are created by using talc powder. This talc powder makes the surface of the material look milky and not crisp and clear. So I always do all my build-up coats. I'll put 6, 7, 8 coats with the high gloss Pearlworks lacquer, which is on the left. And then my very last coat, 1, maybe 2 coats maximum, I'll knock it down with a satin finish, a semi-gloss, or a flat. But I will never, ever use a build-up coat using a talc powdered lacquer. Now, a lot of people say, well, why do you use talc powder? Well, the only way to take high gloss and to take the shine or the sheen off of it is to use talc powder, especially when you're using lacquer materials. So, again, this is the materials that you're going to be using for your final finish coats. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the finish is absolutely beautiful. here's our finished piece. As you can see, with the dry brushing and the antique techniques, it really makes the molding pop. And of course the distressing gives it a nice old world look. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is why we do the primer coat. Now that you see the different colors where the yellow comes through, it's that very warm mapley look. Now if you use a darker color stain, you can get a different look by using the beige. But these are the types of looks that we're getting on any type of substrate. It doesn't have to be wood. It could be resin, it could be masonite, it can be MDF, it can be plastic. I mean, these techniques for finishing really go over any type of substrate. What makes the Pearlworks parts pop is the fact that we design our parts to be finished, and now we've designed a finishing system to complement the parts to give you a long-lasting, beautiful, realistic look that's fine furniture quality.